So I want to share with y'all today some of the experiences I've had sneaking backstage at concerts over the years. Um, you can't always be fortunate enough to get a backstage pass or to know somebody that knows somebody, that can get you back there. And me being the fan that I am, I've always wanted to get a little closer to a lot of the entertainers that I admire so much. So I've just bikers. So I just always did what I could to sneak backstage, and I've done it several times over the years. It's been a long time, many years since the last time I actually did it. I'm too old for all that stuff now, but there's three different ones that I want to share with you today in no particular order. And I guess I'll start with the last time I actually snuck backstage. I think the year was 2013. It was the Kings of the Mic tour, headlined by LL Cool J, and they also had Ice Cube, De La Soul, and Public Enemy on the bill. Um, this took place in Tucson, Arizona. So, me living in Phoenix, the show didn't come through Phoenix, but I believe Tucson was the very first night of that show. So I had bought my tickets way ahead of time. A homie of mine who lived out there, we were gonna kick it up to the show. Paco, what's up? Uh, and so I got in town. Now, from what I remember, I believe the show started at like 7 o'clock that evening, and I got to town maybe about 2. Just to make sure I got my tickets from Will Call, and I was gonna, rest up or whatever until the show. I had plenty of time to do everything I needed to do and get to the show. So when I pulled up to the venue, it was actually at a casino, and I've seen a lot of concerts at casinos over the years, and so I'm not thinking too much of it. I pull up in the parking lot, and it's during a warmer part of the year. I can't remember the exact month, but it was a warmer part of the year. And so I got my windows down on my car, and I just hear this music just like bumping. You know how a concert sounds from outside? Just boom, 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 like that loud music coming off from the distance. And so I was like, wow, what is that? And I could tell like it was rap music that I was hearing. And so it's like 2:30 in the afternoon, and I'm like, what's going on? And that's definitely rap music I hear, and I'm thinking, is this like some kind of afternoon concert? Did I screw up? I didn't know what was going on. And upon a little more investigation, I'm driving through the parking lot, or part of the parking lot, and here's the casino over on this side, but the music's like coming over from this side. And that's when I realized that this was a whole separate venue. It was at an amphitheater, and the amphitheater was a part of the whole casino property, where they obviously did a lot of shows, outside concerts. So I still don't know really what's going on. So I drive over by the amphitheater, and I park the car, and I kind of walk up this hill. And when I walk up this hill, there's like a wall. And so I look over the wall, and I realize that I'm all the way at the back of the actual amphitheater, and facing me all the way on the other side is the stage. And that's when I realized that there's LL Cool J sound checking. And I'm like, whoa, I gotta get over there. I never met LL before. One of my favorites. So I'm like, I gotta get over there. So I was like, let me run inside and get my tickets real quick so I can knock that out. So I go into the venue to the ticket counter, will call, get my tickets, and I go back over. And one of the techniques I used to use to sneak backstage in the past was just get to the venue super, super early. The security's light, everything is light. They're still setting up, and you can just, well, me, I just walk right in. I just walk right in, and nobody seems to, you know, notice me. So that's pretty much what I did here. So I parked closer to where the front of the entrance was, and I literally got out my car and walked right into the amphitheater grounds. And the gates were open over there. Normally they would be closed, and then you'd have to go through this one area where you would have to show your tickets, but these gates were like wide open. So I literally walked in there, walked down the one side of the venue towards the stage, and walked up what would be stage left. Walked past the sound guys, take a glance at me and keep going. And I'm like, yo, it's crazy. Unfortunately, by that time, LL was done sound checking, and they were in the process of getting ready to sound check for Ice Cube. But there was a lot of people, back there mingling around, and different DJs were getting set up. And the first person that I ran into was Professor Griff from Public Enemy. Now, I'm a huge Professor Griff fan, not just for what he's done with the group, but a lot of the black revolutionary things he's done outside of the group. Um, Man, I was stoked, and he had a warm greeting for me, and I told him, "Yo, man, I got all your records, and I uh, I dig all your videos on YouTube. I've been checking your videos out." And he thanked me, and it was short and sweet, but a real nice conversation. And then I proceeded to. I was walking around the stage, and I ran into what's his name, Cartoons or Crazy Tunes, Ice Cube's DJ. Uh, Z Trip was back there. Who else was back there? There was a people mingling around getting stuff done, and then of course you had the stage crew that was making stuff happen, and all of the DJs were set up on these big lists, so they were kind of high in the air. And so I just went clean through the venue, and I kind of went outside the back of the venue, and I was just hanging out back there. So I like called one of the homies up, like, "Yo, man, I just snuck backstage at this LL show and blah blah blah," and I was trying to meet LL, but he took off, and so I'm not sure what's going down and blah blah blah. And I see Flavor Flav from a distance, and he just like he was there, and then he was gone, and before it was too late, and or before I was able to get to him, too late. Anyway, and then after a little while, like a Escalade, black Escalade pulled up, and Maceo and Dave from De La Soul hopped out. I've met them guys, a few times, said my greetings to them, and I'm just like kind of hanging out. And I couldn't, there wasn't a whole lot of other people that I ran into. I was really waiting for Ice Cube to show up, because they were blowing up those inflatable W's on each side of the stage, and making sure all of the props worked and everything. And I was just waiting for him, and LL had obviously took off, and so I was just waiting for the next thing to happen. And during all of this time, I would say about 45 minutes passed, and I was starting to get a little nervous, because I didn't really want to get kicked out. Not that it would be a huge deal, but I just didn't want to make any kind of scene, or you know, get kicked out of the place because somebody realized I wasn't supposed to be there in the first place. So I just left at that point, and that was that. Unfortunately, I didn't get to meet, too many people, there. But like I said, I did run into, two of the three De La members, and Professor Griff and saw Flav from like a distance, and saw a few DJs or whatnot. So, and then later on that night, the show was incredible, incredible. LL actually, in my opinion, his show started off really, really low energy, and it built up, as the show went on. But the energy was like real low in comparison to what I'm used to seeing. He usually has this kind of entrance and start to his show, and it was just like wasn't quite there. Of course, LL went on last. Chuck D was like on stage filming him and recording him and just loving every minute. There was one part, I believe, where Chuck D did a song with him. I don't remember what it was. Um, De La went on first, incredible. Um, they had That's when that song "Spirit of the Woo" or something like that had come out. They had just put that out, so that was one of the songs. If you've ever seen De La Soul live, I mean, you know, they aim to please. They never do a dull show. Um, I believe Ice Cube went on second. Man, that Ice Cube, man, him and Dub C. You guys have seen these guys get down. I don't have to get into too much detail about that. Public Enemy, all the S1Ws, all of those guys. It was great. It was a great show. It was completely packed. Completely packed. I don't know, how many people that venue holds, but it was crazy up in there. And Tucson, just Arizona in general, has some of the most beautiful women in the world. And when I tell you LL pulled a few of them up on stage, all right, enough about that. So yeah, that was the last time I snuck backstage that I can remember. That I can remember. It might have been, and I snuck backstage to a few LL shows. Um, and then one time we actually opened for LL Cool J in Tucson years before that. That's a whole nother story. Anyway, um, yeah, that was 2013 if I remember correctly. So the next one I want to tell you about is Smoking Grooves. Now I've spoken on Smoking Grooves a few times. The Smoking Grooves tour. They started in the mid '90s, and I think they've been going consistently pretty much since then. They just had one show in California just recently, but other than that, it used to be like a tour. But I believe this one was just one show, and it was like a huge, huge show. But anyway, this one I'm talking about, I believe it was either the '96 or the '97 show in Milwaukee, and it was kind of sneaking around, but not, because what happened was this. I used to have a few public access shows, and one of the shows I had was a video show where I would just show music videos. It was a fake show. I just used that show because I wanted to get product from the labels. Basically, what I was trying to do was get free records, promotional records from the labels. So I did this video show, and I would say, hey, send me videos and records and any kind of promotional items. And so they would send me videos. So I would make this fake show, but it wasn't a real show. It's just a show. I would edit it, but I would never air it. My show was DJ related. And on this particular time, I had my boy Professor Pitt, rest in peace. He was with me. Pitt had a rap related show, um, also on public access. So what happened was, I was working, one of the companies that I was trying to get items through was a company called Red Ant. And I don't know exactly what Red Ant did, but I used to get these videos from them and whatever product they would send me. And Red Ant was a company that worked with Delicious Vinyl. And on this particular Smoking Grooves tour, they had the brand new heavies, which was signed to Delicious Vinyl. So I called up Red and I forgot the gentleman's name that I would deal with, and I said, "Hey, uh, brand new heavies is coming through on the Smoking Grooves tour. Can you get me backstage passes so that I can interview them for the video show?" Now, no disrespect, I have probably 4 or 5 brand new heavies records in my collection, but I really can't honestly sit here and say I was really interested in interviewing the brand new heavies. I just wanted to get in the show to where I could interview all of the, everybody, including the brand new heavies. But so I was like, "Hey, can you get me backstage pass?" And it's like, "Yeah, we'll see what we can do. Blah blah. We'll work on it. Whoop de woo." So what happens was I was supposed to get the passes from the brand new heavies themselves, or whoever their road manager was, or something like that. So I made arrangements to meet up with them the day of the show early at their hotel. So me and Pitt pull up to the hotel, and oh, check it out. That was wow. Amtrak. So we pull up, and there's the tour bus there, and this was before cell phones and all of that. So I went and I got on the tour bus, and after I forgot the guy's name who was the I can't remember if he was the road manager or their personal manager or who, but I got on the tour bus. He gave me a couple passes, and he said, and it was for the brand new heavies only. I still have that pass, but it was just for them, brand new heavies only. It wasn't like all access. It was just exclusive to brand new heavies. And he told me specifically, after you do the interview, this was later on when we got to the venue, after you do the interview, you got to leave. All right, no problem. But me and Pitt, we wasn't going nowhere. So so we get to the show, we get backstage, we interview the brand new heavies first, and basically I was running I've said this before, but Pitt and I worked together a lot, and I would help him on his shows. He would help him on my shows. A lot of times when we were at concerts, it would basically be me running the camera while he's interviewing someone, and vice versa. And so I was running the camera while he was interviewing the brand new heavies, and then after we were done with that, we just started making our rounds. And if I remember correctly, um, we definitely interviewed the Roots on that tour. We interviewed uh, the brand new heavies, the Roots. I think that was the show where I walked into Erica Badu's dressing room, and we didn't interview her, but I did get some drops from her. And I'm trying to think of who else was on that show. I believe Foxy Brown was on that show. Uh, Man, I can't remember who else. Cypress Hill was. I can't remember Cypress Hill was that show or the other show. Oh, and then we interviewed George Clinton later on that night at his hotel room. So we made our rounds, and we interviewed as many people as we could. It was pretty good. So it kind of wasn't sneaking, but it kind of was, because we were supposed to leave after the brand new heavies, and we stuck around and just made our rounds and started hitting everybody. And I have you can check out some of that footage, because I did upload one of Pitt's shows. It's called Mental Fitness Zon Other Level Pit. I'll put the link below so you can check that out. But you can see part of that Roots interview, and then there's a few highlights at the end of the George Clinton interview. And then there's some other stuff from some other shows, but Pitt's show is crazy. I'm just warning you ahead of time. Um, so yeah, that's another one that I wanted to tell you about. That brand new heavies Smoke and Grooves tour. That was either the '96 or the '97 show. I believe it was the '97 show. Yeah, and then the third one I wanted to tell you about was, okay, so I forgot about the third one that I was planning on telling you about. I'll save that for another video. But I'll tell you about this other one that I just remembered. And this was the Def Comedy Jam. This was, I can't remember the year, it had to have been '97, '98 when they came through Milwaukee. And I just wanted to interview Kid Capri, because he's like my favorite DJ. Kid Capri, DJ Hollywood are like my two favorite DJs in the world. And so that's all I wanted to do was just, I want to I want to interview Kid Capri. That's all I cared about, right? And we all know how crazy Def Comedy Jam was. That was like the show. So I remember once again doing my technique, getting to the venue early. It was at the Riverside Theater, downtown Milwaukee. And I remember going into the side door, and it must have been 4 or 5 o'clock, and I went in, and there was nobody, like nobody in that venue. And if there was, I didn't run into him at all. So I remember walking in there. The door from that leads from the alley into the venue where a lot of the tour buses pull up, and the celebrities get off. That door was open. It was like cracked open. So I just opened it up and I walked in, and I walked up on the stage, and Kid Capri's turntables was there, and all his records was on a table in the back. He used to roll with like 10 crates at least. And I remember him telling me, well, I'll get to that part. Anyway, so there was nobody around. So I had a press kit, I guess you could call it, that I used to give to different celebrities. And I had a VHS tape in there with a copy of my show. And then I had some paperwork and a business card and some other stuff in there. And since nobody was around, so, Kid Capri had this stool behind the turntables, because that's where he would sit when the comedians were up. He just kind of sit there, you know. And so I just laid the press package. It was like in a vanilla envelope, and I just set it on his stool, and then I left. And then, that just wasn't good enough, man. I just really wanted to interview him. So I went back like, I don't know, an hour or two later. And when I got back this time, I saw one of the tour buses in the alley. And I just knocked on the door of the tour bus, and it opened up. And I was like, hey, is Kid Capri in there? And they were like, no. And I'm gonna be honest with you. I could care less about the comedians back in those days, and a lot of them, went on to become mega superstars. I could almost swear that the dude who kind of opened the door that I spoke to was Bill Bellamy, but I don't remember. But I think it was Bill Bellamy. Anyway, so I just go back into the venue, and I kind of go up on the stage, or I'm backstage, and then all of a sudden, I'm just waiting for Kid Capri, trying to wait for him to, and then all of a sudden, all of the comedians just start piling in. They just start walking in one at a time, one at a time. Now, here's what's crazy. I don't know who those comedians were, and I probably should have looked this up before I did this video, but I don't know who was walking in there. I don't know if it was, Bernie Mac or Chris Tucker or Red or you know I don't know. I don't know who I was in the presence of at that time. Whoever it was, all of those guys are much bigger than they were in the 90s. That's for sure. So I was probably around some mega stars and some superstars and some mega stars in the making. I'll have to look that up and see if I can see if there was like a list of people that was on that tour that particular year. But that's kind of crazy that who I had access to, and I just didn't care. You know what I mean? So eventually, Kid Capri comes in. So he comes in. He's with his homeboy, and they come up on the stage, and Kid Capri is like getting set up, and he's pulling out records and stuff. And I go up to him and I say, "Hey," I tell him who I am, and I tell him I ask him for an interview. And he was like, yeah, yeah, when I'm done, when I'm done. And then his boy walked up to me and basically was like, "Oh, you got to leave him alone, man, when he's, while he's setting up or whatever." And I was like, "All right, cool, cool, cool." So I stepped back, and this is before all that Serato nonsense, and he was pulling his records out, and he had like a stack of records on each side of the turntables, just like a stack that was like a foot and a half tall stack of records on each side of the table, of the turntables. So, and then he asked me, he was like, "Yo, man, what's the hot records, in this city? Like, what's the records that's people like really, you know, really digging out here?" And I was like, I think I told him Pistol Grip Pump. He was like, "Okay," and I told him DJ Jimmy, Where They At. I told him you can never go wrong with More Bounce to the Ounce. And I remember him saying, "Oh, okay, that's in one of my crates still on the bus." So he already had 10 crates, I kid you not, in the venue. And he told me that he had like another 5 or 10 crates on the tour bus. So he was like, "Okay." And so it was crazy because many years later, when the internet started popping off and you could see all these interviews, I've heard Kid Capri say several times that whenever he's in a city, he'll ask the local DJs there what are the hot records because he wants to be able to accommodate the people, in those cities and play stuff that they like, if he possibly can. So I was definitely one of those people, that he's done that with. Um, so it was crazy. So after he was done setting up and everything, he gave me an interview, and we talked about Def Comedy Jam. We talked about some of the records that he had produced because at the time I had recently got a record from Nice and Smooth. It was called Blazing Hot, and it was produced by Kid Capri. And we talked about that record and some of his mixtape or whatever. And I put that on my show. I've lost the footage of that. It might be buried in my many 8mm tapes that I have, but I haven't seen that footage since I shot it and aired it on the show. And actually, that was right before I moved out to Phoenix, so I had to turn in like another 3 months worth of shows to fill out basically my contract for that year. So I didn't actually see it air, but it aired. So because I didn't see it air, I wasn't able to actually record it or get a copy of it, because I think on that particular show was Kid Capri, it was Rock D when he was DJing for Gumbo. That was at the African World Festival. Uh, and a couple more DJs on there. I can't remember. But I never, other than editing the show and turning it in, because they were on like those half-inch tapes. For those that don't know, like the half-inch tapes are like bigger than like a VHS tape. That's what the studios used to use back then. And so it wasn't like I could just make a copy in the studio and take that home. I had to wait until it actually aired and then recorded off of television. So I never saw it air, so I never got to see that finished product as a whole outside of the editing room. But anyway, so I did my thing, and I was able to. That was a cool one, man. Cause like Kid Capri, he's like way up there on the ladder for me as far as people I admire, and to be able to actually interview him was great. And years later, I've met him many times, over the years. I was actually at his crib a few years ago, and we chopped it up there. And I should have brought up the. I should have brought up that Def Comedy Jam. Man, I should have done that anyway, but I didn't. So yeah, that's the third one. And so I'll have to do some more videos like this because there's plenty more occasions of Daryl D sneaking backstage at a show, trying to get some footage or meet some celebrities or something. So yeah, that's what's up, man. And thank y'all for watching. And this is Daryl. This is Daryl D's TV. And I almost said Daryl's DJ Spotlight. Wow, that was a blast from the past. That was the name of my show. This is Daryl's DJ Spotlight. Anyway, thank y'all for watching. And we'll see you next time. Peace and love.